She's now officially gone solo, and her debut disc, When You're a Boy, finds Ms. Hobbs collaborating with a real interesting array of songwriters like David Bowie, Brian Eno, Diane Warren, and Cyndi Lauper, with input from all facets of rock and roll. It started to get, with the Bangles, to a point where there was a whole list of what we could do and what we couldn't do. Things became kind of restricted towards the end, and I really just wanted to get rid of all the restrictions. Susanna Hoffs, the famous singer from the 80s band The Bangles, has always been a captivating figure. People remember her for her energetic performances and unique style. Recently, she has been making headlines again. Hoffs was known for her bold fashion choices and often left little to the imagination with her outfits. This made her a fashion icon, and many people followed her trends. Today, Susanna Hoffs is still turning heads. She continues to shine, looking stunning and confident. Fans are curious about what she is up to now. Is she still singing? How does she keep looking so good? What projects is she working on? Let's dive into the world of Susanna Hoffs and see how she continues to amaze everyone. My husband's a filmmaker, and he used to come home and I'd be sitting there 8 hours at the kitchen table working on the book. He goes, "Why are you having so much fun writing?" No one enjoys writing. Early life. Our house was always a fun house for all of my brothers and my friends to come over and hang out. Susanna Lee Hoffs was born in Los Angeles, California on January 17, 1959. Her parents were Tamar Ruth and Joshua Allen Hoffs. Tamar was a film director, writer, and producer, while Joshua was a psychoanalyst. Susanna's family is Jewish. She is their only daughter and has 2 brothers named John and Jesse. Susanna's home life was a bit different from many other homes. She said it wasn't really traditional. It was more like an atheist, intellectual, and creative world. Her mother was religious and kept kosher, but her father was not religious. Susanna's grandfather, Ralph Simon, was a rabbi in Chicago, and her uncle, Matthew Simon, was a rabbi in Maryland. Her uncle even marched with Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement. When Susanna was 12, she went to Israel for the first time to visit her grandparents. She also celebrated her bat mitzvah at the King David Hotel in Israel. When Susanna was a child, she learned ballet and started playing guitar in elementary school. Her uncle taught her some chords. She went to Palisades High School and then attended the University of California, Berkeley. She graduated in 1980 with a bachelor's degree in art. During college, she changed her major several times, studying dance, theatre, film, and art. While she was in college, she worked as a production assistant and acted in a film called Stony Island, which was directed by Andrew Davis and co-written by her mother. Susanna loved music. She went to the final concert of the Pistols at Winterland Ballroom and a Patti Smith concert with her college friends. These experiences inspired her to become a musician. After college, Susanna became famous as a musician. She formed a band called The Bangles with some friends. The band became very popular in the 1980s with hits like Manic Monday, Walk Like an Egyptian, and Eternal Flame. Susanna was the lead singer and guitarist. Her sweet voice and catchy songs made the Bangles one of the top bands of the decade. Our garage was turned into a rehearsal hall early on, and actually the Bangles started in our garage. Yeah, I actually don't live at home. I live in the garage. Throughout her career, Susanna also worked on solo projects and collaborated with other artists. She released solo albums and continued to perform and write music. Her passion for music and her unique voice kept her in the spotlight for many years. Susanna's life is a mix of creativity, music, and a bit of Hollywood. From her early days in a non-traditional home to her success with the Bangles, she has always followed her passion for the arts. Whether dancing ballet as a child, acting in films, or rocking out on stage, Susanna Lee Hoffs has made a significant mark in the world of entertainment. Rise to fame. There are different accounts of how Hoffs met the other musicians who became the Bangles. Hoffs either posted an ad in a local newspaper and left flyers at the Whiskey A Go-Go at a Go-Go's concert in search of potential bandmates, or Hoffs answered a similar ad asking for musicians to join a group. In the second scenario, the woman who advertised had previously been in a group with sisters Vicky and Debbie Peterson and shared a house with them. Hoffs elected to form a group with the Petersons rather than with the original advertiser, and they started the band in Hoffs's parents' garage in Brentwood, which had been refurbished as an apartment for Hoffs. How did it come together? Well, there was the old ad in the paper, the special ad in the paper that Susanna was running, and Vicky and I had this band going. It didn't quite work out. The band was originally called The Colours, but changed it to the Supersonic Bangs after Hoffs saw an article about 1960s hairstyles in an old copy of Esquire, and subsequently to The Bangs. Hoffs said that the group liked the double entendre of the name, and that you can read a lot into it. There was something kind of gutsy about it. Meanwhile, Annette Zelinskas joined as the bass player alongside Hoffs on rhythm guitar, Vicky Peterson on lead guitar, and Debbie Peterson on drums. The group's musical influences included the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and the Hollies. Who influenced you the most musically? All of you. The 3 Bs, the Beatles, Byrds, and Buffalo Springfield. Hoffs and the Petersons shared lead vocals. Hoffs remembers the band's first real performance was at Laird International Studios, where Vicky was a secretary. They played at other venues in Los Angeles and San Fernando Valley and recorded Getting Out of Hand, which they released on their own label, Down Kitty, in 1981, pressing 1,000 copies. In a 1987 Rolling Stone interview, Susan Orland described the band's early audiences as mostly boys who appreciated their tough-enough music and playfully flirtatious stage presence. Author James Dickerson later characterized the group's loyal audience as made up of high school and college-age males who relished their in-your-face quality and commented that the musicians had gained their success through their own efforts without intervention from any man. The Bangles. How far do you lot go back? Many a year. Many a year. I guess about 7 years for the 4 of us. Debbie and I go back. The Bangles started when Miles Copeland from IRS Records saw them at a show. He had already signed another group of women called the Go-Go's, who were very successful. In 1982, another group called the Bangs said the Bangles were using their name, so they changed their name to the Bangles. At the same time, the record company Faulty Products, which they were with, closed down. Their first small record, an EP, came out on IRS Records in 1982. In 1983, the Bangles signed a new deal with Columbia Records. One of their band members, Annette Zelinskas, left and Michael Steele joined. Around this time, Susanna Hoffs, one of the band members, acted in a short comedy film called The Haircut. In 1984, the Bangles released their first full album called All Over the Place. Critics liked it, but it didn't sell very well. Their big break came in 1986 with a song called Manic Monday, written by the famous musician Prince. This song reached number 2 on the US charts. It was part of their album Different Light, which critics also liked a lot. This album sold so well that it was certified double platinum in 1987 and triple platinum in 1994. Another song from this album, Walk Like an Egyptian, reached number 1 in the US in December 1986 and became their first gold record. Manic Monday and Walk Like an Egyptian were especially liked by women and girls. Susanna Hoffs met Prince in 1984, and they often talked. Prince went to some of their concerts and even joined them on stage a few times. Writers Paul Evans and Ernesto Lechner from the new Rolling Stone album guide said that Hoffs had a singing style that mixed energy, sweetness, and a bit of sadness. In the music video for Walk Like an Egyptian, during a close-up of Hoffs' face, she moves her eyes from side to side. Hoffs recounted that she had been looking at selected members of the crowd to counter stage fright and had not realized it would be a focal point in the video. Tom Brahan of Stereogum wrote of the scene, "But it's so cool, it makes her look like she's up to some mischief." The television director Marty Connor later said, "I saw situations where one shot would make a star, like with Susanna Hoffs in Walk Like an Egyptian, that thing she did with her eyes." In 2011, she said, "I guess it's become an iconic moment in that video. and I didn't even realize it was happening. A 1986 London performance by the Bangles was reviewed by David Sinclair of The Times, who felt that the band proved unconvincing in performance, although Hoffs was by and large the best at creating a mood of emotional involvement. Her clear, fragile voice and coquettish enunciation were reminiscent of Stevie Nicks. In the same paper a few months later, Richard Williams also compared Hoffs to Nicks, writing that Hoffs' dark eyes, dangerous pout, and fancifully sexy costumes match her sultry voice, were reminiscent of the Fleetwood Mac singer, and concluding that Hoffs was an equally obvious candidate for a successful solo career one day. The Bangles had another US number 2 single with a cover of Simon & Garfunkel's A Hazy Shade of Winter, released in late 1990s, 1987, and reaching its peak position in February 1988. Following a successful tour, the group issued their third and final Columbia album, Everything, in 1988. The first single, In Your Room, co-written by Hoffs with Billy Steinberg and Tom Kelly, became a US top 10 hit. The same album included their second US number 1 and second American gold record single, Eternal Flame, which was also co-written by Hoffs, Steinberg and Kelly. Hoffs sang the studio recording of Eternal Flame naked due to producer David Sigerson pranking her by telling her Olivia Newton-John had done the same thing. He later told Hoffs he had just been pulling her leg. As the studio was dark and Hoffs was standing behind a sound baffle, she could not be seen. Hoffs was lead vocalist on 5 of the 7 Columbia singles by the Bangles. This, and an expectation that groups would have a primary vocalist, contributed to a public perception that she was a lead singer, even though all 4 members took lead vocals across their output, and Steele and Peterson did most of the talking between songs in concert. As she was significantly shorter than the other band members, photographs of the group tended to feature her at the front. She was the lead actress in the all-nighter 1987 and had Prince's attention. Orlean wrote that the cumulative effect was to vault Susanna into beyond Bangles' celebrity status. In 1989, while still popular, the Bangles disbanded to undertake individual projects. There had been tensions and disquiet in the group since The Different Light. They saw themselves as musical creators, but their biggest successes had been versions of songs written by others. The public perception of Hoffs as bandleader took a toll on group harmony. In an interview for a 2002 book, Hoffs pinpointed the stress of touring as the breaking point. In her account, she recalled that the band members were tired and reluctant to tour, but agreed to do so at the behest of their management and record company and in response to demand from their fans. According to the book's authors, Lee Miller and Jessica Miller, the situation deteriorated so badly that they cancelled the tour abruptly and the band split up. Susanna always blamed the stress of that final tour for the breakup. Who initiated the end of the Bangles? Who came with the word, basically? I think Michael Steele and I sort of called each other up and realised we didn't really want to make another record in the band. Hoffs contacted the other members of the Bangles in the late 1990s with the hope of reuniting. In 2008, she told Andrew Murfitt of The Age, "I wanted to do new Bangles music. I was driving the other girls crazy calling them. I didn't want to be a greatest hits band. I wanted to write and sing new songs. That was really important to Vicky and Debbie too. We didn't want to go on a Ladies of the 1980s tour." The reunited Bangles played at a Beatles tribute concert conducted by George Martin and recorded the single Get the Girl for the second Austin Powers movie in 1999. Subsequently, they announced their decision to reunite full-time in 2000. Hoffs recounted that following the experiences that led to the group disbanding in 1989, the band members agreed that each would have a veto on the group's proposed activities. Their 4th album, Doll Revolution, was released in 2003. Despite positive reviews, it sold moderately well. The group embarked on a tour following its release. Their 5th album, Sweetheart of the Sun, was released in 2011. It received an average score of 69 on review aggregator site Metacritic, indicating generally favourable reviews. Evans and Lechner felt that the band achieved the dubious triumph of sound over significance and of the inevitable reunion that even nostalgia has its limits. Robert Christgau rated all of the albums from their first incarnation B or above and gave Doll Revolution 3 stars. It started to get, with the Bangles, to a point where there was a whole list of what we could do and what we couldn't do. Things became kind of restricted towards the end, and I really just wanted to get rid of all the restrictions. Her solo career, Susanna, has also done a lot of solo work and some acting. Here's a simple breakdown of her career and contributions. In 1984, Susanna Hoffs sang lead vocals on 2 songs for a music project called Rainy Day. This project was led by David Roback and included members from other bands like Dream Syndicate, The 3 O'Clock, and Rain Parade. The songs she sang were Bob Dylan's I'll Keep It With Mine and Lou Reed's I'll Be Your Mirror. I'll Keep It With Mine was the main track on Rainy Day's only single record. In 1987, Hoff starred in a comedy movie called The All-Nighter. The movie was directed by her mother, Tamar Simon Hoffs, and also featured actors Joan Cusack and Pam Grier. Critics did not like the movie much. Glenn Kenny said Hoffs's character was spunky, but not very smart. Janet Maslin from the New York Times called the movie outstandingly dim, meaning very dull. Richard Harrington from the Washington Post said Hoffs was stiff and self-conscious in the film. The movie didn't do well in theatres, and Hoffs thought it might be better suited for home viewing. In 1991, Hoffs released her first solo album called When You're a Boy. It featured a hit single, My Side of the Bed, which made it to the top 40 on Billboard. However, the album wasn't very successful overall. Some critics liked it, with Alan Neister saying it was as good as the Bangles' best work. Others, like Ira Robbins, called it boring. Before she left Columbia Records, she worked on a follow-up album with producer Matt Wallace, but it was never released. Her second solo album, Susanna Hoffs, came out in 1996 on London Records. This album was praised by some critics for being catchy and personal. Stephen Thomas Erlewine from AllMusic liked it, calling it infectious and engaging. Wook Kim from Entertainment Weekly said Hoffs showed bravery in her work. However, some critics like Colin Larkin felt only one song had the same spark as the Bangles' hits. In 1992, Hoffs sang We Close Our Eyes for the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie soundtrack. She also sang the title song for the 1995 movie Now and Then. She recorded Burt Bacharach's songs for the Austin Powers movies in 1997 and 2003. In 2003, she contributed to the soundtrack of the film Red Roses in Petrol. Hoffs released her third solo album, Someday, in 2012. American Songwriter magazine gave it a high rating, calling it her best work. James Reed from the Boston Globe praised her voice and the album's sunny, cheerful vibe. The album was influenced by the music of the 1960s and featured musicians from Elvis Costello's band. Now briefly looking at the early 1990s, after Mike Myers left the TV show Saturday Night Live, he joined up with musician Matthew Sweet and singer Susanna Hoffs. They formed a pretend British 60s band called Ming T. Mike Myers was working on his famous Austin Powers character during this time. Susanna Hoffs took a break from her solo music career to join in. They met up just to have fun and play music. They all used fake names. Matthew Sweet became Sid Belvedere, and Susanna Hoffs became Gillian Shagwell. They played music at nightclubs in Los Angeles. Mike Myers' wife at the time, Robin Rusin, thought he should make a movie about the Austin Powers character. This led to the creation of the movie Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, which was directed by Susanna Hoffs' husband, Jay Roach. The band, Ming T, showed up in all 3 Austin Powers movies and even made some songs for the movie's soundtracks like BBC and Daddy Wasn't There. Susanna Hoffs also worked closely with Matthew Sweet on other music projects. They called themselves Sid and Susie and made several albums where they sang old rock songs from the 1960s. Their first album was called Under the Covers, Vol 1 Inch, and came out in 2006. It had many classic songs from the 60s. They followed it up with Under the Covers, Vol. 2 Inches in 2009, which featured songs from the 1970s by famous artists like Fleetwood Mac, Carly Simon, and Rod Stewart. In 2013, they released Under the Covers, Volume 3, which had songs from the 1980s, a decade when both Hoffs and Sweet started their careers. This album included songs by bands like The Smiths, The Pretenders, and Roxy Music. In the same year, 2013, Susanna Hoffs worked with Matthew Sweet and actor Tim Robbins to record an old song called Mary Ann. This song was for a special album filled with sea shanties called Son of Rogues Gallery, pirate ballads, sea songs, and shanties. In short, Mike Myers, Matthew Sweet, and Susanna Hoffs had fun making music together in a pretend band and also worked on real music projects covering many famous old songs. They made both fun and serious music, showing their love for different styles and eras of rock music. Then fast forward to 2016, Hoffs contributed to the song One Voice for the film A Dog Named Gucci. The song was also a charity single to help animal causes. It featured other artists like Norah Jones and Amy Mann. Hoffs released her fourth solo album, Bright Lights, in 2021. This album had songs by various famous songwriters and was produced by Paul Bryan. Critics praised her voice in the album's variety. In 2023, she released her fifth solo album, The Deep End. Produced by Peter Asher, this album included covers of songs by the Rolling Stones, Squeeze, and Leslie Gore. Critics like Lily Moyeri from Spin magazine praised Hoffs' voice and unique interpretations. Hoffs has also written songs for other artists like the Go-Go's, Belinda Carlisle, and Bette Midler. She has provided vocals on albums by artists like Talking Heads and Rufus Wainwright. In 1992, she won Best Female Rock Vocalist at the Pro LA Music Awards. Hoffs published her first novel, This Bird Has Flown. It's a romantic comedy about a struggling musician. The book received positive reviews, and Universal Pictures bought the rights to make it into a movie. Personal life. Right under the radar. We don't go out on those 2-month bus tours like we did in the 80s because we all have kids, so we're all juggling. Susan Hoffs has been married to her husband, Jay Roach, since 1993. Jay Roach is a movie director and producer. You might know some of his famous movies like Austin Powers and Meet the Parents. Susan and Jay have been together for over 30 years, which is a long time. They have 2 sons, Jackson and Sam. Susan is very proud of her family and loves spending time with them. Her marriage to Jay has been strong because they support each other in their careers and personal lives. They make sure to spend time together, no matter how busy they are. Family means a lot to Susan, and she often talks about how important it is to her happiness. Besides music, Susan has many other interests. One of her favourite hobbies is painting. She loves to create art and often spends her free time with a brush in her hand. Painting is a way for her to relax and express herself in a different way than music. Susan also loves reading. She enjoys getting lost in a good book, whether it's a novel or a biography. Books give her new ideas and inspiration for her music and her life. Another hobby of Susan's is yoga. She practices yoga regularly to stay fit and calm her mind. Yoga helps her stay healthy and balanced, which is important for her busy lifestyle. Susan also enjoys traveling. She has visited many places around the world, both for work and for fun. She loves to explore new cultures and meet new people. Traveling gives her a lot of joy and new experiences. Susan Hoffs is more than just a famous singer. She is a loving wife and mother, a talented artist, a passionate reader, and a dedicated yoga practitioner. Her life is full of love, creativity, and interesting hobbies. She shows that you can balance a successful career with a rich personal life. Susan's story is inspiring to many people because she follows her passions and takes care of her family. She is a great example of how to live a happy and fulfilling life, an enduring icon. Her influence stretches far and wide, touching the hearts of both fans and fellow musicians alike. When it comes to her impact on other artists and the music world itself, Susan's got quite the resume. Musicians look up to her for her unique style and killer tunes. She's like the blueprint for how to rock out and still stay true to yourself. Her songs have a way of sticking with you, inspiring folks to pick up a guitar and start strumming. And hey, she's not just loved by fans, she's got the trophies to prove it too. Susan's racked up some serious recognition and awards over the years. From Grammys to Hall of Fame nods, she's got a shelf full of accolades that prove just how awesome she is. But Susan's not just living in the past. Nope, she's still out there making magic happen in the music world. She's been dropping some fresh tracks and hitting the road for tours that leave crowds begging for more. Her recent releases are like a breath of fresh air, showing that she's still got that spark that made us all fall in love with her music in the first place. And if that wasn't enough, Susan's also been teaming up with some other rad artists and keeping busy with all sorts of cool projects. She's like a musical powerhouse, constantly finding new ways to keep her fans entertained and her fellow musicians inspired. Hoff isn't just a singer, she's also a big-hearted person who loves helping others. She's into a lot of charity stuff and works hard to make the world a better place. That means she spends a lot of her time helping out organizations that do good things for people. She doesn't just give money, though she does that too. She gets her hands dirty, showing up to events and lending a hand wherever she's needed. One cause she's really passionate about is helping homeless people. Susan knows how tough it can be to not have a place to call home, so she does what she can to support shelters and programs that help get people off the streets. But that's not all she's into. Susan also speaks up about important issues that affect our communities. She's not afraid to use her voice to stand up for what's right. Whether it's talking about equality, the environment, or helping kids get a good education, Susan wants to make sure everyone has a fair shot at living a good life. When she's not on stage singing her heart out, you might find Susan at a protest or speaking at an event. She believes in using her fame for good, to shine a light on issues that need attention. So next time you hear one of Susan's catchy tunes on the radio, remember that she's not just a rock star. She's also a rock star when it comes to making the world a better place. So if you're looking for someone who's left a lasting mark on the music world, look no further than Susan Hoffs. With her influence, awards, recent hits and ongoing collaborations, she's a force to be reckoned with. And who knows what she'll come up with next. One thing's for sure, whatever it is, it's bound to be amazing.